Boom. All right. We are officially recording. All right. Cool. Thank you so much, everybody, for attending. I'm really excited to have Lou and Andrew, who are joining us today. They're the creators, the directors of Borrowed Time. I don't know if you've seen the trailer that's online. You can go to borrowedtimeshort.com to check it out. It's amazing. What you can see is amazing. When I saw that, I immediately was like, you know, I hadn't met Andrew or Lou, and I reached out to some friends over there, and I'm like, put me in touch right now. I need to know more about this film. And it's, you know, I did get a chance to see it, and it's amazing. And we'll be talking a little bit about the whole project, just kind of how long it took, how'd they get it into festivals, you know, all the stuff that they're learning about film festivals, which I think is really, really interesting. Also just about the technical challenges they had along the way, all this stuff to help you guys kind of understand the process of finishing a film. So if anybody's ever made a film, you know, it's easy to start something, but very, very difficult to finish it.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll be chatting about that as well. So I just want to kind of call out a couple things. There is a Q&A panel, so it just says Q&A. You can enter your questions that you have for Andrew and Lou, and we'll go ahead and pull them up and answer them here. We will not be pulling up you on the webcams. We decided to just keep it simple. And but thank you guys so much for being here, and we'll go ahead and get started. So,
of course, thanks for having us.
What's that?
I said thanks for having us.
Yeah, for sure. Well, first of all, Lou, raise your hand just so everybody can know who you are. Bam! Lou is a character artist over at Pixar Animation Studios, which is just down the road, a couple blocks, which is awesome. And you joined Pixar in 2008, from what I could find. Something like that.
Yeah, 2007, I think. Yeah.
2007. There we go. You've worked as a character artist, which I think that's a rigger, right?
Mm-hmm. That's correct.
Right, yeah, which is crazy. On WALL-E, Toy Story 3, Partly Cloudy, Day and Night, Brave, Toy Story, The Time Forgot, and The Good Dinosaur.
That's correct.
Yeah, and then some other stuff which you're working on, which no one can ever talk about. It's the secret stuff. And then Andrew, you can raise your hand. I guess he's the exactly. Andrew, he started at Blue Sky Animation Studios, which is awesome. He worked on Horton Hears a Who, Ice Age, Dawn of the Dinosaurs, and then you were a character lead on Rio, which is awesome. I love that movie. And then you joined Pixar in 2010. I think that's correct.
Yeah, 2010, yeah.
Yeah. And then you worked on Cars 2, Brave, Toy Story of Terror, directed by Angus MacLean, which is awesome. Inside Out and The Good Dinosaur. And I think you just recently finished up on Finding Dory. Is that right?
Yeah, I was on there for sort of the last 2-3 months.
Yeah.
Come in and help with Hank, the octopus.
Oh, that looks awesome, man.
Yeah, there's some really great work done on Hank, and I was excited to help, but it was really difficult.
Yeah. It looks insane, man. I mean, I can't even imagine. And it just looks so perfect. Everything I've seen on the trailers and stuff looks amazing.
Yeah, a lot of great work.
One of the things that I found really interesting is that you guys both went to film school together. Is that right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So you met in film school and then just kind of kept that friendship going, even though that was in New York. And then you moved out here to California, and Andrew, you stayed in New York for a bit. But you guys kind of helped each other out on your student short films. Can you tell us a little bit about that experience?
Yeah, we both went to NYU Tisch Film and, you know, studied a lot of film and like shooting film. And we also have an animation department within the Tisch film department. It's not its own department. It's kind of like a sub-department.
But it's not its own major, but you can specialize.
Yeah.
If you kind of want to hone your track towards learning about animation and stuff.
But yeah, needless to say, there's not too many kids per year there. I would say it seems like 18 to 20 that are doing animation. Wow. And then within each one of those, there's maybe one that's like us, in that we were like obsessed about becoming animators, and you know, we just did everything we could to get better and to become the best animators we could. And a lot of that was just kind of leaning on each other and finding kids like us at school, and we just all gravitated towards each other. Because like Lou started 2004, and I started 2001, so I was a junior, senior when I met Lou, and you know, we became quick friends, and he helped me on my student film.
Oh, that's cool.
And then when I graduated, I was still in New York for, I stayed in New York for 9 years overall, but I became a character TD at like a small production house called Curious Pictures, and I helped him on his student film when he was doing his at school.
And just to say it too, at the time, most of our studies were focused on traditional animation.
Yeah.
So
hand-drawn.
a lot of hand-drawn stuff, and that was kind of what laid the foundation for us.
We learned like 3D on the side because 2D was kind of on its way out, and we were like, oh shit, I guess we have to learn the 3D stuff to get a job.
Right.
It was like right on the cusp. I think, The Princess and the Frog hadn't been done. There hadn't been a 2D film in a while, and we were like, oh shoot, we better learn this stuff. But we also enjoyed it. So.
And even Princess and the Frog was kind of like, so far down the line. Yeah, no, that's great. So then you guys kind of kept in touch and then said you wanted to do something together if time ever permitted, and you guys did.
Yeah.
Borrowed time.
What's funny is Andrew has some conversations that he saved from this, but way back then, we're 3,000 miles apart and we're trying to get a film together. And unlike today, where you have things like Artella, right? There was nothing to collaborate with. We were trying to find like file sharing services or anything. The best thing that we had was like AOL Instant Messenger. It's just
cutting edge technology.
Our conversations that we have saved are all about like, oh, did the file that I send actually get through? Can you see it?
Can you see the file?
We couldn't get to the point where we were talking about making the film.
Right. Yeah.
Talking to each other. So that was incredibly frustrating. And whenever we came out to the respective coasts to visit one another, we would brainstorm, but that's about as far as we could get with a particular idea. Yeah. And it wasn't until we were both in the same space that we were able to take all of those ideas that we had come up with and say, okay, which of these is the most compelling? And that kind of led us towards
one of them was a Western, so that's the one.
Okay. Yeah, that's cool. So you guys have obviously other ideas that you want to do one day. After you get some sleep, obviously, I'm sure.
Sleep and some money,
Cool. And then so when you guys came together, you both were then at Pixar together, as you were mentioning, you came under the same physical place to make it. When we went to lunch and talked about kind of how this came about, which I think would be really interesting for people, is that you didn't just do it like on your own after work, like at home, you actually did it after work at Pixar, using Pixar software. And wow, I mean, I didn't use MinV30 or like the newer version, but I can't even imagine like having to learn all these other disciplines as well. So I was just kind of curious if you could talk a little bit about one, how that is a particular program that you guys got into to be able to do that, and then just a little bit about that kind of learning curve for you, what that was like, and learning all these other disciplines.
Yeah, totally. So, I mean, Pixar is super supportive of people who want to learn more about filmmaking in their off time, and so they have this program in place that's meant to be kind of like an educational venture. So you put in an application, you make sure that your film isn't conflicting with what's going to be made in the near future, and if it gets approved, then you have the clearance to go ahead and try to make it. We started off initially with that like one sentence description of our film being like, oh, this is going to be a dramatic Western. It's going to be like 2 to 3 minutes. It'll take about a year. It was like so naive.
That's awesome.
And we said, and we still, we have these documents, and looking back on this, like, man, we have a lot to learn about what was actually going to need to happen in order to make the thing.
Yeah.
And for a while, we started just the two of us thinking, hey, we've got this 2D experience. We both love design. With myself and Andrew having done character modeling and rigging in the past, we're like, let's just try to own as much of the front end of that pipeline as possible, so that we can actually generate work that we could show to people and say, this is real. We're not just talking. It's not just an elevator pitch. It's actually like, here's an asset that if you want to do some shading on it, it's there. It's waiting for you. And I think one of the hardest parts is trying to find the right people in each of those disciplines that we didn't know stuff about to help us out. So getting those key individuals, and then even more difficult was, when we got to the point where we needed to jump in and help out, like you said, figuring out how we could learn these other disciplines was a real challenge too.
But just to say it, like making it and having the opportunity to make it at Pixar at work it's a great opportunity, but a lot of the challenges are going to be the exact same as what you're going to have outside of there. There's some positives, but there's also some difficulties with the fact that we did it there. But at the end of the day, it was, the same thing we would have to do outside. We'd have to learn our pipeline. We'd have to figure out how we fit in it. We need to get the right people in the right places for things that we don't understand, or learn them ourselves. And it was more about working with people and collaborating at the end of the day. And the technology of how you make it's important, but it's not the reason you're making a film, and it's not the real lesson of making a film.
Right. Absolutely.
You have to figure out and deal with.
Yeah, and one of the most rewarding parts of it, I think, was cultivating that team and finding people who, I don't think we've mentioned it yet, but the whole process from beginning to end took us about 5 years. So when you have people who...
Super easy, guys. If you want to make a film, YouTube, 5 years.
When you get people who have invested themselves in something for that long, and they know they're valued members of the team, we would have these meetings that were, not departmentally based. They were just everybody that is free to talk about this, please come, because we need perspectives from all of you. Yeah. And that was awesome. I think all of us got so much out of that. So I think the next thing we do, whatever it is, just trying to keep that spirit is
empowering the people that are helping you to succeed is like a big part of finishing a film, because you can't do it all on your own.
Right.
Well, depending on the style. If you're doing something simpler, hand-drawn maybe, or even 3D, but like simple, you can probably do it on your own. It's going to take time. But if you want something that is bigger in scope and involves departments that you don't understand at all, then you're going to need help.
Yeah, no doubt, for sure. Well, cool. I mean, it's great just hearing about that struggle. I mean, ultimately, I don't want to pitch Artella too much, but that's really our goal, is to help, most people we talk to, it's like 5 years to make a film. It goes like this because of your own personal, struggles that are going on in life and whatever, and just being able to keep that motivation. So our whole hope was to make, take the technical out of the equation, and hopefully, shave off at least, a year, a couple years off of that process. Just make it a little more accessible for people. Yeah, cool. We have one question so far, and if you guys have any more questions, just feel free to put them in the Q&A section. We'll bring them up. This one's from Neve Lifshitz. Thank you for putting in the first question. And he asks, is there anywhere we can see the short films from university, he said, or just from anywhere, I guess?
That is a great question. Do you have yours hosted anywhere? I don't think.
Our short films.
Our short films?
From school. Sorry, I was like borrowed time.
There you go.
Well, see, we made this before, just like before YouTube.
Yeah.
Or mine was like right the year YouTube came out, so I don't have it anywhere, honestly. It's embarrassing, and I don't think anyone needs to see it.
Oh, that's awesome.
No, mine isn't up anywhere. You had yours up for
mine was for when I was applying to various jobs and stuff, but I haven't had it up in quite a while. If we can overcome our own nerves, sure, we'll put it up somewhere, and we can pass the information along.
Yeah, that's awesome.
For sure.
Yeah, I'm the same way in my short film in school. I keep saying I'll put it up at some point. It's on VHS, and I do have it. I just don't have a VHS player. But again, it's the same thing. It's like, I don't know who did that,
Yeah.
Well,
no, there's merit to some stuff.
Yeah.
We're learning. We learned making borrowed time too. We just we held ourselves to a very high standard, and that's why it took so long, honestly, because we had a lot to learn. And
it's great.
Dirty laundry aired out is it's always scary, but
Well, I think what you guys achieved is pretty incredible. Even what you can see on the trailer is awesome. So it sounded like you guys had a lot of different ideas, and you kind of went with the Western theme. And I was just kind of curious, like, what made you zero in on that? And it's probably not the genre or the story, or that it's a Western, It was probably more of the story that you wanted to tell. Can you tell us a little bit about how you kind of came to the story that you wanted to tell?
Sure.
It's not like something you would find in a Pixar short film, or kind of it definitely has some real deep, kind of powerful moments in it for sure.
Yeah. For us, when we first started, we've been working in feature film for 4 years or so at that point. And, we love our job and we love the movies we get to work on, but they're a certain type of movie, and we just wanted to do something different for ourselves, just to kind of keep our inspiration fired, and just to try something different and to learn and to fail at something different. So we try to pick something that would be difficult for us, and a dramatic, serious action drama sounded difficult. And that was a good place to start for us, because we're like, cool, yeah, that means we have a lot that we would learn. It's different than what we get to do at work. So that was like part of it. Another part of it was just to kind of challenge the notion of animation being a genre in itself. Yeah, that's always really bothered us, and we love a lot of different types of films, and we get a lot of different enjoyment out of different cultures' animation and the different stories that they tell. And in America, at least in the popular sense, and for feature film, it's a lot of the same movie over and over, and the same type of story over and over. And we just wanted to try something different that maybe wasn't, geared towards kids, and could be, more adult themed or mature in some ways, and just push that idea and challenge ourselves that way as well. I don't know if you have any more thoughts about, I guess, the Western genre in itself.
Yeah, the Western just kind of played into that, because there was a lot of iconography that we could lean into and say, everybody's seen a cowboy, but have you seen them go through this particular type of struggle?
Yeah. It seemed like a weird or great contrast. Like, you never see cowboys cry or go through something difficult in their lives. They're just usually characters that take action and are virtuous in helping someone else, but borderline bad people in some way, because it's part of that era. It's like a vigilante quality.
Yeah.
So anyway, there was just a lot of visual stuff, meat that we could kind of chew on and say, okay, cool, we can start with this and try to find something unique about it.
Yeah, I think my response to you guys when I saw it was that there's so much backstory that's not told, but you feel it. I don't think I've ever had that experience on a short film, for sure, live action or animated. There's these moments that you feel are happening with the character, but there's man, you feel this whole life that has happened with this one particular main character. And I mean, that's super deep, man. I mean, how did you guys kind of pare it down to the things that you showed? And I'm sure you had a couple volumes of more stuff that you wanted to show. How did you guys kind of do that, your editing process of your ideas?
It was a long process. A lot of it was just learning how to tell a good story and how to tell a good short story. When we first started out, it was way bigger scope. The film was about forgiveness, and it involved 3 characters, and you need to set up a lot of different relationships that are complicated. And there was just no way. We were at 10 minutes on our animatic, and we squeezed everything into 10 minutes. It did not feel comfortable as a 10 minutes. But that was a good year process of us trying to make that story work. And it just, we added dialogue, we did everything we could to take shortcuts on getting information out for the audience so that they understood the complexity of the larger story. And there was a point where we, I'm making this a lot smaller and easier just to say to you guys right now. It's more involved, and we tried more stuff, a lot of tangents. It was a big learning curve for us. But we got to a point where we knew we couldn't tell that story, and we had already like created a good amount of the characters. One of them would have to be cut if we wanted to shorten it, and we had already like modeled and half rigged it, and it was just a real low point for us when we had that screening, and it was the realization of like, we can't make this movie the way we want it to be. This is not good. And we almost gave up at that point. The fact that we had people helping us, and we were so far along with assets and with our pipeline, we couldn't just let it go. So we decided to take out all the crap and just make it into a teaser trailer for the bigger thing. And so we literally put together a teaser trailer, and we showed the team, and like after that meeting, they were so deflated that we had gone from like this, you know, brand big idea to like teaser, and everyone was like, oh, and we were like, shit, we can't leave it as a teaser. But what was great is the teaser forced us to cut a lot of crap out of the story and just focus on this one moment, and we built a teaser around this one moment. And from that, we kind of, I think, oh, that's you. I was like,
yeah, that's me.
From that moment, I remember, Lou, there was a day that you came in and you had an idea for how to like, we had an intercutting sort of spaced out moment with intercutting into the event that happened. It's very teaser, you know, trailer snippets of things. And there was a way that Lou thought we could introduce our main character, and it's kind of what you see in the teaser, the main character and the memory of what happened. And that's kind of how we started it, and we just found a way to bookend sort of what he wants out of coming to the scene of this accident, and what he actually needed to move on with his life. And we found a way to like bring it all together and make a film about closure, and not about forgiveness from someone else about a mistake you made. It's about closure in a mistake you made in your past, and kind of coming to terms with that. Yeah. It's simpler, but still difficult. So to answer your question, which you asked 10 minutes ago, probably now.
That's awesome. This is great.
The backstory you feel is that there was a lot more backstory, and there was a lot more to it that we literally made and explored. So it still was all there. And when we were animating our main character and any of the scenes, we all knew the story.
Yeah, everything was informed by all those conversations and sort of stuff. So you get little like tips into things that are there. There's enough material that we threw away over the various versions of this thing that I don't want to say you could easily make a feature out of it, but there's a feature's worth of material there.
Yeah, sure.
That could be molded into something, and to try and squeeze that feature-length idea into 6 minutes was
well, and then in that sense, like the short may be, you know, a teaser for something bigger, you know, who knows? Yeah. But I mean, that's cool to hear that story. I've never actually heard, you know, that coming to your film was like you had this giant thing, and then you just made this teaser, and then you found the moment that you wanted to tell through like having to force yourself to just call it down and like make this little thing, and then you're like, holy crap, like this could be the film that we want to say. And even though the meaning changed, like it still had a deep meaning in this whole backstory. Like that's exciting. That's exciting to hear that part of the process is constantly editing yourself.
There's story. Sorry, go ahead. I was going to say story is a process of subtraction. You hear that often, and this was our way of getting there, and it was clunky and a roller coaster of emotions. But we got there. We found, you know, at the end of the day, what you want to do is figure out what you're trying to say, and then say it in the cleanest, simplest way possible, so that the audience understands what's happening. Like that's it. It takes a lot. It's very easy to say that. It's the same with animating. When you're animating a scene, you need to figure out what message you're giving in that scene. What is the point of the shot? What is the character's moment in its arc? What is this shot saying about this character? And as long as that is clear and simple, the way you do it is up to you, but it needs to be there. And if it's not there, it comes across that way. You're like, I don't understand why that shot existed. And there should be a reason for every shot, and there should be a reason for any short you make. And I mean, trying to take the micro animation lesson to like a whole story. Every shot needs to have a purpose, and the whole film needs to be saying one clean thing. Mm-hmm. It can have, you know, themes that run with it, but overall there needs to be a through line that is clear, and it is so difficult to do. It just takes time and like asking questions and throwing things out and, you know, killing the babies that you love so much and the shots that you were like, this shot is so cool. This is the reason why we made this film. And you end up playing it, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
in service of what the message is or what the story is. It's a very difficult, it's easy for me to say it. It's one of those things you have to like go through to truly understand.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the teaser thing, it's a great lesson in economy for sure. Like Andrew's saying, we came across it totally by happenstance, but I would venture to say that it would be a great tool to use if you ever get into it where your story isn't quite clicking for yourself.
Yeah.
You've got too much stuff. Force yourself to cut it down to like, I don't know what ours was like. We cut it from 10 minutes to 50 seconds.
Yeah.
And that will be like, all right, this is, you know, and then you can build it back up. But we had stuff that was so superfluous and was there because it would be fun and animation-y.
Yep.
And there was a whole 2-minute chase sequence through a canyon that was going to be awesome and action-packed and stuff. And now that's like 12 shots, and it's like each shot is intercut, and you get everything you need to get out of it, but we don't dwell on it. So there's little things like that you can unlock by doing that sort of thing.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, Francisco asks, what I saw of the project and the trailer was awesome! Exclamation mark.
Cool. Good question.
And then he says, my question is, how did you recruit people for the project? How casual or formal were people working on it? Thanks.
Cool. That's a great question. So part of our recruiting process was that we tried to do everything ourselves in the beginning. And this was part of a process of us letting go of the idea of making it on our own without anyone. But what we did was we tried to own the things that we knew we could do well and present that to people instead of, you know, just a verbal pitch. Because you get a lot of verbal pitches. I'm sure everyone that's listening now and will listen to this, there's people that come up with ideas all the time, and they're friends of yours or not, and they'll give you that pitch. But how often do those films get made and finished? Not very often. Yeah. So we just wanted to like prove not only to other people, but for ourselves that we were serious about it and that we were going to finish something. So we kept working. And there was a good year where it was pretty much just Lou and I, like with one editor, putting together animatics, modeling, rigging, doing all the stuff. And by the end of it, we had something that we could show people, and it got them excited. So that was actually a really good recruiting tool for us. Outside of that, I would have to say most of the people we got were like through friends or friends of ours. But that's only just because we knew their work ethic, and we knew, and they knew how serious we were about finishing something, and they just were like wanting to help. You know, it was just a kind of an organic, easy way to do that. But not everyone on the film was, you know, from a friend or what have you. So in terms of like recruiting people, we also try to find things that people wanted to do that weren't necessarily their job.
That's cool.
All the time. So there's the mix. There's people that want to get better at the thing that they do, and then there's people that want to try something completely different. And then give them more ownership over that thing so that they are more invested in it and actually care as much as you do, and the amount of time and work that they put into the thing that they're doing. It's an easy way to make it so you don't have to force people to work on something. Because if it's the sort of thing where you're like, please do this for me, and they don't, and you're not paying them, and you know, months go by, and you know that happened with a few people here and there that would say they'd help, and then you figure out who's actually going to help you and who's nice. Right. But empowering people was a very helpful way to do that too. But
I think that covers most of it. That initial year of us trying to take on a whole heck of a lot of it ourselves. I think that mentality, we knew that we wanted to make it a recruiting tool. I think that's how we rationalized what we were doing to ourselves. But in reality, I think it was also coming a bit from the mindset that we left school with when, you make your films as a one-person team and you are accountable for everything. And so I think we started in that way, and we have a great deal of trust for each other. So that wasn't an issue, but I think getting ourselves to a point where we were like, no, we need to trust people more and like divvy out and delegate as much as possible was, I think, a big lesson that you learn moving from making a student film to making something that's a little bit more of a professional setting.
Yeah. It's like how much time do you spend directing, like purely directing, versus a creative person on the film that you're also directing. There's a difficult balance to do with personal projects and producing. We're lucky we got a producer, but in the beginning we were producing, which we don't know what the hell we're doing, but it's a lot of time. All these different disciplines are a lot of time if you want to do them well. And the more people you get involved in a project, the more you have to deal with the management of people and the planning and scheduling of people. And it becomes a very different machine. That it's not the same as making a film on your own at all. It has almost nothing to do with it in a lot of ways, because all of a sudden it's not just about you making and working hard, or like feeling bad that you're not working on a Friday night or whatever personal issues you have. It's about how can you help people, this group of people that might have the same exact issues of motivation and goals. They might have different goals with all this, and you have to accommodate them and help them and make sure that they're happy and able to do the best work they can, and direct them and give them the information they need to make your vision.
Yeah, that's huge.
It's crazy. And then for us, the other problem we run into was that when we were doing the art ourselves and directing it like in a room, it's super, you have no objectivity. You're looking at something that you literally to the frame did something. Right. And we had a couple moments where one of us might have taken the helm at something. And one of us. It's like,
anything that we divvied up that we started to get a little bit too intimate with. Yeah, there would be times where we'd be looking at something and we'd be like, oh no, we gotta go back in there and change that. How do we do it? And the other one of us would be like, dude, it looks great. It serves the purpose.
I don't see where you're looking at.
I don't see what you're seeing anymore. It's telling the story, and that's
great.
But you just have to you have to surround yourself with people who can keep you honest.
Yeah. Well, our producer was really good at that stuff. She'd be like, so I don't see anything that you guys are talking about right now. Is this really important? And we have to be like, okay, all right, fair enough. Yeah. Is this really important right now? You know what? No, it isn't. And we'll move on. Or, it actually isn't for these reasons.
Right. You guys also I have like a bunch of questions that are coming up throughout this, so I'm going to try to keep mine small because there's a bunch of great ones here. Having an editor is something that a good buddy of mine, Carlos Baena, he told me, like, you can't direct and edit your own film. Like, you need to have a separate editor because they're going to make different decisions. You're going to just get so close to it and not see it anymore. Yeah. So I had him kind of come in on this project that I was working on, and we trimmed it down. We trimmed like 3 minutes of it out. It was like, oh, and again, like killing the babies, it's like, there they go. But then in the end, you kind of step back and you're like, oh, that actually feels so much better. So I was just curious. I did see that you guys had a separate editor as well. So, I mean, these are just good lessons to kind of pass on to people making their own projects, is having that objectivity and finding ways of getting other people to do those roles. And I'm curious for you guys, not being the editors, I'm sure you sat right next to the editor and would be like, a little more of that. Like, what was that relationship like in that process?
It was interesting. I mean, do you want to fill that?
Yeah, I mean, it was great. The whole thing is, editing in animation when you're working from boards is a pretty tricky thing as compared to most other editorial jobs. And we tend to overboard Coming from a 2D background, we're like, we're drawing, cool, let's put as many drawings as we can to really over-describe this thing and like make sure that it's super clear.
Yeah.
So same sort of thing where we had to go through a process of realizing that, we had very specific like animator timing notions of how long things should be. But at a certain point, that's great to get your thing up. At the end of the day, something might just fundamentally not be playing, and having somebody else in the room that has been with you there every step of the way but didn't do the drawings themselves can be like, you know what, this doesn't work. What are you going for here? What if I tried cutting this out and rearrange that? And that happened so many times with our editor, Kathy, too. And she was great at doing that and helping us kind of always. And she was on the project for we're talking about 5 years. She was on it from day one.
Wow.
To the end.
Yeah.
So,
God bless her.
Yeah. So yeah, there's definitely you need that everywhere.
Yeah, we're lucky that there's two of us too. So it does help that we kind of do that a little bit for ourselves in terms of like editing our ideas, and that's kind of what editing is. It's about what are you trying to say and how can you say it in the most economical way, as well as like trying to push whatever mood or emotion you're trying to sell in the scene. And it was great that we had two of us to kind of hone in on that, but even better to have Kathy, who would come in and sometimes be like, I tried this alternate version. Yeah. And you're like, what? Okay. And you watch and you're like, oh shit. Okay, cool. This is awesome. Perspective on the thing that I've been like looking at like this. Yeah. And you're like, oh shit. Okay. So there's other ways to do this. So it's really
cool.
Refreshing. It's kind of it's the same as having, multiple disciplines in the room when we're showing a shot. Where you have this outside perspective on the thing that you've been focusing on. Mm-hmm. And they can bring it back to like the bigger notions of what you're trying to sell and what you're trying to say.
Yeah.
And be more of an audience member instead of this like completely subjective, like tunnel vision person, which is what a director is in a lot of ways. And that they're trying to hone everyone towards something, but it's really great to have opportunities to be like, step back and be like, oh, okay. Was what I'm going for exactly what I wanted, or was this just the way I thought about, the shots for this one section? Yeah. And is there a better way to do it? And it kind of opens you up to new ideas, which is great.
That's awesome. Yeah. Well, let's see. Left asks, the typical production process goes from boards to animatic to previs to animation. Did you guys follow that process? Did you find any hints or clues in there to make it more efficient for next time?
Totally. Yeah. We did some things that were meant to be time savers. So yeah, we did boards and built an animatic, and then built our layouts. And then while we were animating, we still, because we were directing and animating and doing everything, we still would trim things and combine shots. And it was nice to have the ability to do that. You were making the calls on everything, and to be free to do that was really great. But one thing we tried to do, and we did do it, but because it was the department that I'm most comfortable in, and Lou's pretty comfortable as well. And in animation, we tried to block the whole short out first, and then there was moments in the movie that we knew would be the money shots, and we tried to either get someone really fresh on those shots. And that's a really strong animator on those shots, and put like sort of our time and money into those, and then try to raise the bar around that on the quality without like polishing everything like to final as we went. At the end of the day, we made enough time to polish everything pretty highly, but we did start from a more like intent-driven blocking, where we weren't worrying about all the minutia and detail of a performance. We were more worried about getting the idea of the intent of the character across, and building a performance around that, which was really helpful. But at the end of the day, honestly, the production time of the film was probably, about a year and a half. It took us to make the film, maybe 2, if you count like some of the rigging stuff earlier. But what took us the most time was honestly just learning story and nailing down what we were trying to say. And it's just because we've never really, we're not in the story department, but we have all these amazing, talented storytellers around us. And we were learning a lot as we went and realizing that, it's like the more you know, the less confident you become for a while, because you start realizing how much better things can be. And what you don't know, you start realizing like, oh my God, I assume so many things that are not true at all. And I thought I knew this, but I actually don't know this at all. And there's like this emotional curve that just drops as you learn in the beginning. And then once you start learning enough to be able to do some damage and to actually make a difference to what you're trying to do and to go towards the goal, then that starts to pick up again, and you can use that momentum to keep you going. But as anyone knows, when they're learning, there's definitely periods of depression and, like, I'm not good enough. I can't do this. And we went through a good amount of that, and we were doing this on the side, like, on weekends. So it wasn't like a concentrated, like, I'm learning story. It was like, we're making a movie. Cool. Let me do the boards. And then we'd screen it and you'd be like, oh my God, that was fun. That was so bad. Why was that so bad? There's confident though. I love this shot and I love this, but that's not what telling a story is about. It's not about like the directing of shots and like cool ideas. It's about like the story. What are you trying to say? And hanging all those cool moments that will support that story. And it took us a long time to kind of figure out that sort of through line that we were trying to say, and then we could hang the cool stuff on top of it. And
that's cool.
Which is a long process for us to realize and learn and get help.
There you go. I mean, I was going to say, like, if you have any like nuggets, I mean, you just dropped a bunch right there. Just, just showing it and like seeing it and being like, oh, story's about story, what you're trying to say, the through line.
Yeah.
Are there any other things? Because you did learn this art, so they're probably pretty fresh in your head around story. Like, what are kind of some of the big epiphanies you had? You mentioned a bunch already.
Springboard off of that, and I'll jump in.
I mean, showing people is really important. It's very easy to kind of like hoard your work and be like, nobody understands me. My work is precious and perfect. But when you actually put it in front of an audience, it's not just, getting their perspective or hearing them say this is good or this is bad. It's literally when you screen it with an audience and you're sitting there, you all of a sudden have this, it's amazing. I don't know if you've experienced this, Bobby, but all of a sudden you're seeing it through their eyes. You're like, oh, this is the way this feels. Oh. And it's just, it like all of a sudden gives you this like omniscient power that like you can step back from yourself and like put yourself in the shoes of your audience. And there's a lot of power in just that. And that was something that I don't think I fully appreciated until we did that. Because before you screen, you're like sitting together, you're like working, you're looking at the editorial thing, you're like,
you're in this dangerous where
dangerous, super dangerous,
where and it's like
patting each other on the back.
Yeah, we did it. Yeah, it's cool. And your drawings are great.
Yeah, we totally nailed that moment. And then when you watch it, you're like, wait, that moment did not work out.
But one thing that's incredibly difficult, given the subject matter that we chose, is it's not a comedy. So when you're playing it for people, there isn't that sense of how it's playing in the same way that you would from something that's funny, and you have a joke and it goes up and somebody's either laughing or they're not. And if the majority of the room is laughing, then you're like, cool, all right, I guess that's funny. I guess we can check that, like that was a success. With something that's dramatic and puts you in a place where you kind of feel a little uncomfortable, like took you somewhere else, it is silent. There is not a single, well, one or two little types of things that can tip you off, but for the most part, there's not a lot that you can grab onto and be like, okay, at least when we go back and rework this, we know that we can hold on to this moment. It's just kind of like this sea of people taking in like a very emotional thing, and then even after it screens, sometimes we'd be like, all right, it's over, and everybody would forget to like. Right? Because
it's not a
like,
cheering,
everybody's thinking, and they're so in their heads about what they saw and processing it for themselves that we screen it, and at the end of it, we're like, oh my God, this is the worst. It's not even worth applause. we should just stop.
Yeah. No,
like, what are we doing? And you know, it's one of those things that you need to like get comfortable with and realize that this is the type of movie that you're making.
Yeah. If you choose to make something that's not a comedy, comedy is the easiest thing to not easy. It's not easy to make people laugh. Sorry, it's the easiest feedback to get back from an audience because people enjoy themselves and laugh, and you hear it when people are like really into a dramatic moment. There's no feedback. They're just silent. And actually silence was the thing that we learned became like our like, oh, people are into this. Because we watched, you know, like, and going to festivals gave us that. Like when you go to festivals, there's a lot of different types of films. There's funny, there's dramatic, there's really artistic, there's non-narrative, there's all sorts of things. And you can go from like a comedy to like ours, and people are kind of chattering as they're watching it. They're not taking it in like this like really sort of calm way. It's like it makes you, you know, energetic. And then when ours comes on, you can feel like the chatter kind of like slowly like cool.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you that. I mean, you're trying kind of transitioning over into something I think people would be really interested in, and that is the festival circuit.
Yeah.
Now that you have this finished piece, which, you know, we've talked a little bit here about, you know, just truncated it down to like, you know, 40 minutes or whatever of your 5 years of crazy experience. But now you bring this finished film out into festivals, and there's kind of a process for doing that, especially if you want to get noticed for, you know, like the Academy Awards, and you can't show it in certain, and you can show it in certain things, and then just getting into festivals. I know it's a huge topic, but I'd love to just kind of get your take, because you guys have been doing an incredible. I mean, we just went to lunch, I don't know, a couple weeks ago, and you said you already went to 5 festivals since then. So, I mean, you guys are very, very active, and I'd love to hear about that experience.
Oh, man.
The Cliff Notes version is it's a roller coaster.
Yeah, right? It's crazy, man. It does not make any sense. That's like the Cliff Notes is like, you can't expect anything. There's no expectations out there. There's different tiers of festivals. I mean, let's break down like kind of the Oscar circuit first.
Sure. So for any given year, if you're trying to line yourselves up for the Oscars, the way that you can be qualified for consideration is one of two things. You either win a qualifying award at one of a number of festivals that the Academy recognizes, or you do what's called forewalling, and you put it up in a theater in Los Angeles, and that costs money. You have to charge for admission, and, you know, under the parameters of the program that we made this film with, we couldn't charge money for people to see it. So that wasn't an option for us. But within the festival circuit, we were like, okay, this is our shot. You have from October of the previous year to the October preceding the Oscars, that window to win one of those qualifying awards. And it feels kind of a little counterintuitive because it's not a calendar year. You see feature films come out right before the Oscars, and they're being considered, and you're like, well, I don't understand how this works. But that's generally the timeline, is October to October.
And this is for shorts only. Yeah, it's weird. And you have to qualify. If it's not an Oscar qualifying festival, some of them have different rules. And actually, honestly, every festival has different sets of rules on pretty much everything. So like your submissions are difficult. There's websites that you can conglomerate like submissions into different festivals, like Without a Box or that sort of thing. Yeah, there's a few of those that you can use, but not every festival's in those. And then the requirements of like, you know, once you get into a festival, what, you know, version of a QuickTime or not, or they accept DCPs or not, or what they expect is like completely different. Some of them wanted Blu-rays or DVDs, and like we assumed that that's not true. And there was one festival we almost got disqualified from because they didn't have our DVD by the deadline. And we were like, wait, what do you mean DVD? Like, we have it up online for you. And they were like, no, we need a DVD. And he didn't send it in. And we almost were disqualified, and we ended up getting into that festival.
Yeah. It's crazy.
It's nuts. But the big thing is, so there's different tiers of festivals. There's the sort of smaller festivals, which are like tier 3, I guess. Mm-hmm. There's the bigger festivals that aren't like the top ones, which are like tier 2. And then there's the top, like the Sundances, the Trifecas, the, you know, what have you, Cannes. Annecy for animation. And I mean, talking to different filmmakers and talking to different festival directors, films do really well in weird ways that are unpredictable. So there's a film that could get into like every single third tier they apply to, right? And then a film that wins Sundance and Tribeca, which is a tier 1, and gets to the Oscars, didn't qualify for any third tier, which are the smaller ones. And you're like, wait, what? That doesn't make any sense. And it doesn't. And the thing is, it's just crazy. It's humans picking films, and the group of those humans that pick film have their own, baggage and subjective opinion about what they think is a good film, what they want to see out of animation, whatever expectations they bring to the table. And your film sits in front of them, and they can dismiss it right away, or they can be like, I love this right away. Or it could be like a film that they are like, oh, this could be cool. And then when they're putting the submissions together, they have an agenda for what they're trying to fit and how the films all fit together. And so you can make it to the last round, and they like literally cut you right at the very end. And you still get sorry, we decided to decline your submission. And you have no idea if you got to the end or if they were like right away, we don't like this, or there's no feedback. Yeah. So it's like applying to college. It is just the most sort of equally depressing and exciting thing. It's a roller coaster, and the more we try to figure it out, the more we realize that there is no really figuring it out. All you can do, filmmaker, is apply to the festivals, as many as you can afford to. Definitely apply to the ones that matter the most to you. We found out you can have a cover letter recently. So if there's ones that you really feel like you fit in with, or they're from your hometown or whatever, include a cover letter that lets them know why you really want to be there and why that could be great for you. Let me think, what else?
I mean, one of the temptations that you might find if you have an animated short is to submit to animation-specific festivals.
Yeah.
But I would encourage people to apply to any festival that has an animation subcategory, because frankly, we've done as well, if not better, in festivals that are more broad than ones that are animation specific.
Yeah.
So,
but it depends on the movie. It depends. Like our film we've gotten into just narrative short competitions where it's us
only live action.
And it's only live action. Yeah.
Wow, that's cool.
That's
what you wanted, though, right? I mean,
that answers for us what we were saying, right? I mean, you want to contest that preconception.
Yeah.
And say, like, no, this is a film first.
Yeah.
And the way we chose to say it was with animation. So it's always gratifying when that happens.
Yeah, for sure.
Right. Thank you for that. And it's really just neat and I mean, obviously, just to put it into perspective for people out here, you guys were rejected from festivals as well.
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
We've been rejected from quite a few of the ones we really wanted, but we've also, like, as of Sunday, we won our second Oscar qualifying festival. We won Nashville Film Festival. So it's like we didn't get into whatever Annecy. We didn't get into the Annies.
Wow.
We were like, and this is what we're talking about, the expectations.
Yeah.
Have to like apply and then let it go, because your film is going to have a life of its own, and the way people perceive it is, it's out of your control in some ways. The only thing you can control, like for us, and this is what we've decided to do, is try to get our story out there, which is why we're doing, an interview with you right now, and to get our story out there and to let people know it's not, a studio film, because we thought maybe that's could be part of the prejudice with like independent film festivals. Look at our film and they might be like, oh, that's a studio, and we'd rather have a guy that's an artist or a girl that's an artist that has like this really personal story that they're trying to tell. But it's like, no, this was a personal story to us, and we did it on our own time, and it's completely independent. It's just it is what it is. So we just want to try to at least talk about our journey and get that out there and see if that helps us at all, or maybe it doesn't. But at the end of the day, it's good. It's gratifying to be able to at least help people that might be wanting to do this to learn about what we did and our struggles and
and
how it's really difficult and really gratifying. But it's going to take a lot of work and maybe longer than you expected, but keep at it. Don't give up. Like the only way you can fail is by not finishing it,
Yep.
So
cool, man. Well, thank you. I mean, we're coming close on time. There's like a bunch of questions. I'm kind of torn a little bit here. I don't know if you guys can go maybe like 5 minutes over.
Yeah,
sure,
We'll just kind of do the power
we'll try
round.
to keep our answers more concise.
Yeah, here we go.
Answer the question and not go on tangents.
No, that's great. I love it. Let's see here. Jennifer Megida. Hey, Jennifer. She says, so this Q&A couldn't have come at a better time. I've actually been talking to other people about working on a collaborative short after we graduate from school. So my question is more about the legal side of it, copyrights, music, scripts, and if we were to try Kickstarter for it, how much would you recommend we raise to cover these costs?
Oh, wow.
A lot in there, yeah.
That's a lot. Get a lawyer. Get a lawyer. Step one, get a lawyer. You also, something you might not have considered is think about the relationships of the people you're working with and make sure you delineate what people's roles are on the film. It's all great to make a film with friends, and it should feel like that at the end, but it's good to kind of get people's expectations out on the table and talk about them so that you don't have issues down the line with expectations that were not met for someone, or feeling like they're slighted or whatever. Your friendships are more important. So talking about it before it becomes an issue is really important. So
that's cool.
Figure out like if there's directing or producing or whatever jobs people want to do, co-directing, whatever it is, just make sure it's out on the table and talk about it.
And more concretely, it may sound scary, but if you can draft a contract so that is not, you're not 5 years down the road and you're like, I thought I was this and not this other thing. Mm-hmm. It might be a little uncomfortable at the beginning, but I think once you get past that understanding of like, no, this is just so that we're all protecting our interests and we're all making sure that everybody's going to get out of it what they want.
Yeah, that's cool.
And that's the best way to do it. We haven't done the crowdsourcing thing, so to be perfectly honest, I can't advise. Do you? Yeah,
the only advice I can give is that it depends on the movie, it depends on the style, it depends on the scope, it depends on a lot of things, how much it'll cost to make. Depends on how much you're paying each other or paying yourselves if you're going to be doing it full time. If you're just doing it like we did for free on your free time, then that's different. But all those factors will determine how much money your film will cost. Mm-hmm. Is it 2D? Is it 3D? Is it, in a game engine? Is it rendered? Like all this stuff can affect it. So it's hard to say, honestly.
I will add, and the last thing, we can probably move on to the next thing, is the one place that we felt strongly that we should put our money was in the music and sound.
Very important.
It's half of your experience when you're watching a film. Mm-hmm. And it's something that, the craft of putting something on screen is something that we can noodle to our heart's content, but we needed to make sure that there was going to be something there that we didn't have direct control over, but we could influence and try to help be the best that it could. So we put all of our funds into that.
Bang for your buck. That's like when you think about how long it takes to do the score and the mixing and all that, it's like a month, Mm-hmm. When you think about 5 years on a movie, and there's 50% of the outcome of how it feels to watch your movie is in the sound design, at least some people say more. Then your music and sound design can literally make or break your film.
Yeah,
so it's important.
Yeah, I think that's a great topic for another Q&A. On just sound design and score.
Yeah,
I'm working on a piece now. I mean, with animation, you literally have no sound design. I gave like this 6-minute short film to a sound designer, and I'm like, "Here you go," and she literally almost fell over. She's like, "There's not a single sound. There's nothing," And it was like, "Oh, I didn't think about that," And then the score, I'm working on another thing right now where I've been kind of having a temp track in there while I was working, and then I finally got the score and I'm putting it in there, and it just is blowing my mind. Like the emotional feeling that just music brings when you watch. It's like, oh my god, like, and then you turn it off and you're like, you know, like it's so powerful. So yeah, that's huge, man.
Music's powerful on its own with no imagery, so
right, that's true.
Pair it correctly, it can be like amazing.
Yeah, definitely. Well, let's see. Time for 2 more questions. Cool.
Sure.
Does that sound good? Okay, great. This one comes from Yao Yao. Howdy, howdy. And she says, hey, if we want to start our own short with a small group of friends, what are some of the basic important things we should definitely think about before we start?
We talked a little bit about figuring out what the goals are for the individuals, but also figure out what the goal is for you as filmmakers together. Like, why are you making a film? So what is it you're trying to get out of it? What do you want to say about filmmaking, or like if you have that as an agenda, or what do you, what story do you want to tell? Why do you want to tell it? This is the stuff that's hard in a group because there's going to be a lot of different opinions about what that means. And it's really important to talk about early on, like what the goals are for the group.
I think that's kind of start there.
Yeah, start there.
It's going to inform everything.
Yeah. And really spend a lot of time on the story, because at the end of the day, that's what really matters. Like, what are you trying to say? If you don't know what that is, and you and you can't tell it well, then it doesn't matter how awesome the rest of it is. So
yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Our last question before we wrap here is from Bayaku. And they ask, guys, during the process of learning what makes a good short story, what kind of reference did you find was really useful for you?
In terms of like films, or?
I would say, I don't know. Maybe he can or she can post in the chat.
Okay.
I was kind of imagining just reference for your film, the other films that you've looked at. Yeah.
I mean, we certainly looked at a lot of live action, like feature films for the Western genre. I mean, a lot of the look was from The Road, which is not a Western in itself, it's a post-apocalyptic movie, but there's a really monochromatic palette, and we used that for sort of the depressed opening scenes with the present day. And then we used more older film stock, 70s Technicolor. Yeah, Butch Cassidy.
But I think the question is more about in unlocking the story, and to be honest,
we didn't.
You're not gonna. Every story is so different that you can't necessarily. You can look to other films to see how things have been executed and how certain ideas were presented visually or in any other way. What the cinematography was like, and this is kind of what Andrew's talking about here. Is like a lot of our lighting influences and that sort of stuff, but it's not going to be something. Hopefully that you look at a film and you lift a moment from and you say, this is what made this film great. And if I replicate that, then I'll have success. You're going to have to find something that is more genuine and specific to what you're trying to say.
You have to be honest with what you're trying to say, and that's what's going to help you build the scene. You're going for like the feeling and the story of the moments you're creating, and copying someone else is not going to help you per se. It can help you learn about how they did it for what they were saying, but if you truly are honest about what your film is and what your voice is, and you try to find out like truth in it, it's going to be different. It's going to be the way it needs to be for your film. More tangibly, things that we looked at. We had things that we don't like about certain types of short films that we tried to not do. So I will say that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of great films out there in shorts that play well and do well, and we're not sliding them in any way. It's just personal preference, but there's films that like just end with a punchline, and it's like a joke punchline, and it's just a reversal. And some of those can be really disingenuous and like feel derivative, and that feels that was something that we didn't want to do. But it's the easiest way to tell a short story is to give you like a setup of a moment and then have a reversal at the end that, there's action and then a reversal. Like a character has a goal and then at the end you reverse it. And there's entertainment in that for sure. But we wanted to really try to find something more like meaningful, emotional. That was like our goal with that. Again, not to say I enjoy some of those shorts very much.
Oh, yeah.
Just a thing that we wanted to try to to step away from and not do for ourselves.
Yeah. Well, cool. Well, thank you guys so much for coming today and sharing your story. You know, I look forward to and wish you guys good luck on the Oscar circuit. I know you said you were in 2 qualifying panels or festivals now that you actually won, which means that, you know, you guys are a contender for 2016 Oscars, which is awesome. Yeah. So again, thank you. That's crazy. It's so cool to see. You're just like people, right? You know, and they made this crazy film. They had all these struggles, and people will just get to eventually see this film and just be like, wow, there's actually people that make this. So again, thank you for sharing your story. And for anybody who's attending, I just want to let you know, Artella, we are launching Artella. I think we're announcing it here for the first time. We're going to be launching it in May, early May. So stay tuned. If you're not on our newsletter, you can sign up at artella.com for our launch announcement. But our hope is to kind of empower people all over the world, no matter where you live, to be able to come together and create great stories, great content for the world to see. So stay tuned for that. Thanks again, guys. I super appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you guys for coming and attending and spending your time with us as well. Take care. See you later. Adios. And you can mute your camera. There you go. Adios.